everyone. Welcome to the Seeds of Success podcast, hosted by Dottie San Martin and myself, Orla Rivera. This show is your weekly dose of knowledge, insights, and actionable tips to transform centers into striking successes. Whether you are a seasoned industry professional or just stepping onto the lanes, we've got you covered. Dottie, it is great to be talking with you today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Orly. I'm good. I'm anxious to see. Okay, I left this one up to you. What is our topic this week?
So today what I wanted to kind of talk about was being clear with people. And by that, I'm kind of referring to, if you're getting something new in your center, a new piece of equipment, maybe, it could be anything new. You want to let your staff know, why you bought this, how it's going to help them, how it can help the center, how it can help the customers. And I think you just have to be clear when you're telling them. And where I'm going with this is, I'm going to give you an example here. Way back in the day when I was young, I'm still very young, but when I was even younger, I used to work for a big retail store. And, I would push during the holiday season. I started out there and I was pushing shopping carts. These shopping carts were getting pumped out like crazy. We had to get them back in the store. One day, me and my buddy, we go to the back to, grab something, and we see this shiny brand new machine. And we're like, what is this? And it was called like something Cart Pusher 2000 or something. And we're like, oh, is this going to pick up shopping carts for us? You see those all over now, but they were new back then. So we're kind of like, oh man, there goes our job. Like, we were joking, but kind of serious. We were like, is this thing going to like pick up the shopping carts and not going to need us anymore? Or, is this machine for one person and only going to need one of us now? Like, we were like, all these things were going through our head. And, that's the same thing when it comes to, a product in a bowling center. Let's say somebody's getting string machines or a kiosk, for example. Are they, staff might think, oh man, they're getting a kiosk. That means instead of 3 of us working up front, there's 2 new kiosks. They're only going to need like 1 or 2 of us now. But that's not necessarily true. And, just because there may be a kiosk in your center doesn't mean, they might not need you to take a food and beverage order anymore, but it's going to put you somewhere else. They're going to be able to use you somewhere else, or to maybe, so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is being clear with the staff, letting them know why you purchased something and how it's going to help and benefit everyone.
Well, we all know that when something new is, comes into the center, we have a marketing campaign and we let all of our customers know, and we start building up hype with that. Well, you know what? There really should be an internal marketing campaign to your employees, right? Yeah. Because we have to get the employee to embrace what it is that we're doing. And as you said, a really good way is to make sure that you're very clear in the communication. They want to know what's in it for them, right?
Yeah.
And especially with some, like you said, with edge string machines. I remember back in the day when we very first got the trouble call system. We got it and started installing it, and the mechanics were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Does Dottie not think that we're doing our job anymore? When in reality, it was completely different than that. My whole intention was to, help with making their job a lot easier. And, I failed in doing that ahead of time. And so once they understood it, there was a big wall in the beginning. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, and they were really kind of angry. But once I took the time to explain it to them, it made a lot of difference. So the same thing really is like with edge string machines, for example. What the owners and managers need to understand is a mechanic does feel that they're being threatened by being replaced by edge string machines. And we found that the most successful centers are those that actually include that mechanic in the discussion and make sure that they understand what the intent is. And, I go back to this, what's in it for me? That's what people want to know. What's in it for me? So for a mechanic, you're wanting to lighten their load. You're wanting to give them the opportunity to do some of those things that they never get around to doing, checking the undergrounds and cleaning the gutters and some of these things that are on the checklist that just don't get taken care of as often as they should. And when you explain that up front, that there is something in it for them, and that your experience as an employee and the experience from a customer is going to be enhanced because of what you just installed or what you just purchased. And another point that you made is kiosk. Same thing. Employees might feel threatened, right?
Yeah.
They might feel that, hey, I don't want to encourage our customers to use the kiosk because that might mean that my hours get cut.
Yeah.
When in essence, the value of a kiosk is that you can redeploy those staff members and you can even retrain them in some areas for them to do things that they enjoy doing, not the transactional, the transactions, the everyday things that the kiosk can do. Now the kiosk can do that, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to free you up to do things that you enjoy more, which is, helping take that customer's experience up a level.
Yeah. And, I used to have, when I was running the center, some of the younger kids that worked for us, in my head, I'm already hearing some of them would maybe say something like, oh man, am I still going to get my tips? Like, if they're using a kiosk. But yeah, you can't be scared of those things. And you need to relay the message to your staff that, hey, yeah, you're still going to be able to get a tip. They can still leave you a tip. It's not like that's all going to go out the window.
Right. And, that is so important to be transparent and try to think through what some of their roadblocks might be. So you brought up a good subject. Tips is something that a lot of the employees depend on, right? And we all know that the kiosk can accept tips, but what is your policy going to be on those tips? How are they going to be distributed? What is your process going to be? And then, remember, you can always encourage your customers to still tip when they deliver the order or whatever. So make sure that you're communicating to the employee, hey, I understand what your concern is, but here is what we're going to do to offset that. Because we're doing this with you in mind. We want you to be benefited from whatever we're doing just as much as the customer is benefited from it. So that communication is, and it doesn't stop with just a new product. Same thing. When you have a new promotion that you're doing in your center, make sure that you are letting them be a part of it and letting them know all the details about it. Because then they're going to adopt it. They're going to want to, they'll be better equipped to explain it to the customers coming in as well.
Yeah. And it's, when you were talking about the tips, something I think of is, when somebody comes to take my order at a restaurant, I don't tip them right away and say, here you go, thanks for taking my order. It's more when they're bringing out your stuff, they're refilling your drinks, and they have to clean up after you. So you're like, at the end of your meal, that's when you're like, boom, here's my tip, I'm leaving, or you sign it when but so I mean, that kind of almost in a way makes your staff, I mean, you don't want to push it this way, I guess, saying like, well, you need to kind of step your game up as doing the other things that you're doing. Make sure you're bringing them out their napkins, making sure their sodas are refilled, making sure, because, if you're still giving that great service or even better service because the other part already took the order for you, that's going to show them that you still deserve your tip. They're not going to say like, well, you didn't really write down my order, so you're not getting a tip. That's not something people are going to do. So yeah, I think you still have to keep your great customer service up, and maybe up your game a little bit because you're not fighting with the kiosk, but you want, if the kiosk were to take the order for you, make sure you're doing the rest of your stuff really good, and show them that you still deserve that tip.
Right. And you know what, that really is one of the things that we're trying to do when we go to when we're utilizing self-service technology, again, not to replace that employee, but to give them an opportunity to enhance the customer experience. And we know when you are able to provide that level of service, that the customer is appreciative. And that's where you'll start to see that increase in tips because the customer's experience has been enhanced. So, but you have to communicate that. You have to help the employee be able to see the long-term benefits for them. And again, transparency is something, especially the younger generation, really appreciates transparency. So make sure that you are keeping that line of communication open. And again, like we've said before on some of our episodes, bring that employee into the conversation, bring that employee into the experience, and let them be part of that story. And I think
hear them out. If you're getting a kiosk, ask them, hey, what are your concerns with me getting this kiosk? Do you have any concerns? And if they're like, well, let's say they bring up the tips, explain it to them, like kind of how we did. and they're going to say,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. But if they automatically have a negative, they're thinking negative about some new product, they're not going to really help people use it. Probably they're not gonna
Yeah.
give positive feedback on it when it comes to customers. If somebody comes up and says, hey, like, how's this new kiosk you guys got? You don't want them to say, I don't really care for it, because then that's going to bring the customer, that's going to bring the customer down with you,
Yeah.
and you got to think about it. There's new technology all the time. Whether I'm sure when the first ATMs came out, people at a bank teller was probably like, oh, there goes my job, but there's still bank tellers
Yeah.
around. I mean, even the biggest, retail stores right now are doing like self-checkout. You still see cashiers, like part of the store still cashiers, and there's 2 or 3 cashiers that are standing near the self-checkouts because they still have to make sure everything's, people are going to need help still. People, so yeah, it's not like it's going to take jobs away. So yeah, I think you just have to be very clear, and I think that's super important.
Yeah. And anytime you have change, when you clearly communicate, like you said, if the employee is having, a mental block against it and they don't adopt it, then they're not going to push it. And another great example of that, there's a couple of examples that come to mind, and I'll share both of those with you. First of all, there are employees, customer service front desk employees that don't really understand time bowling. And so they're pushing customers to the game bowling because they don't really understand the benefits of time bowling to the center and being able to efficiently manage your lanes. And when it comes to managing your lanes efficiently and being able to turn the lanes over, as efficiently as possible, what does that equate to? It equates to more revenue coming in. What does more revenue coming in mean? It gives you the ability to, the more revenue you have coming in, the more opportunity you have to compensate your employees when necessary. So, you want to show them what's in it for them again. And the other thing that comes to mind is, when you are drastically changing something. For example, one of our products, Hyperbowling, or Mad Games, for example, that are completely different from anything the industry has ever seen. You can't expect the employee to just adopt it without you helping them understand what's in it for the customer, what's in it for the customer's experience. Yeah. So making sure that you are completely clear in your communication about what is Hyperbowling all about, what does it do, why, what kind of customers are really going to benefit from this. Mad Games, why, what is the benefit? Who are we going to be able to serve? What are your questions about this? What can we address? What do you not understand? Because once you're clear in your communication, you'll see that you start to get the buy-in from your employees.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And we know that buy-in can make or break the success of a product, a promotion, or even the overall success of a center.
Yeah.
So, well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Seeds of Success. We look forward to you joining us next week. And, we try to equip you with more practical tips, ideas, and trends that'll help your center grow and achieve new levels of success. We hope that you share this podcast with your entire team. If you haven't subscribed, please go to your favorite podcast platform and hit the subscribe button so you'll be notified of our next episode. Until then, keep growing your business one happy customer at a time.